This is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from Israel, bringing you JNews-8. The date is 19th of September 2014, 24th of Elul, in the year of creation 5774. We now bring you a few points on the news. It's an outline of a few things that we found of interest. One was an article concerning the large number of jihadists from Britain, from the UK, going to the Middle East, travelling to the Middle East, and joining up with ISIS, with the crazy organisation that wants to go around cutting off people's heads and killing anyone who doesn't agree with them and doesn't accept their version of Islam. And most of these people, not all of them, but most of them who go there are Muslims. They are not of British origin. In other words, they're the immigrants to Britain, or the children of immigrants who never really assimilated in society. And so, from that point of view, they could be considered not British. But nevertheless, they have certain characteristics, certain attributes to them that they picked up from British society that are of interest and are worth looking at. So, first of all, we should say that an estimated 500 Britons have travelled to the Middle East to join the Islamic State, so-called Islamic State, ISIS, Daesh, or whatever you want to call it. British-born terrorists have been the most numerous, the most violent, and the most influential of European jihadists since well before. There are a few things. Thomas Dalrymple is quoted in an article saying that British jihadists from Britain are acting out of brutality learned at home. It says that they are in effect reflecting aspects of British society as rather than Islamic society. He says that in London, a third of its population was born abroad. There are many possibilities even among Muslims. But nevertheless, the British Muslims are especially violent and aggressive. The person who killed has now been identified, who killed James Foley. Also, Stephen Sotloff and David Haynes had a British accent. He apparently comes from Britain. And not only is the British contingent the most numerous amongst the Western jihadists, but by all accounts they are the most brutal of the brutal. Two questions that came up. The first is why there should be proportionally more jihadists from Britain than, say, from France. The second is why should they be more brutal. First of all is pointed out that Muslims are not just Muslims. Muslims also come from places. The Muslims in Germany are mainly from Turkey or of Turkish origin. In France they are from North Africa. In Britain they are from Pakistan or Bangladesh. Both Bangladesh being on the eastern side of India, being a type of Eastern Indians who converted to Islam, whereas Pakistan being on the western side of India, also being a type of Indians who forefathers converted to Islam. And so they are different from the other Muslims, first of all. Also, that is not the whole story. It is easier for a young Muslim man in Britain to obtain a job than it is in France. Also, social ascent is easier. In other words, in Britain, if you're a Muslim, you can get a job easier than if you're a Muslim in France. Also, you can go up in the social scale much more easier than you can in France, on the one hand. On the other hand, Britain is much more class conscious than France is. Britain is a very class-conscious country, so all the while, wherever you are judged as to your level in the structure, in the hierarchy. And this can cause complications. Even though in Britain you can go up easier, you're nevertheless, more importance is attached to what level you are on. And society therefore can be, therefore failure may be much more frustrating, and this leads to resentment. Also, this resentment is compounded by comparing themselves with other people similar to themselves. For instance, Sikhs and Hindus also from India, are of similar ethnic origins, similar psychology, similar backgrounds, similar modes of speech. But they have less unemployment than Muslims. They have their levels of unemployment are almost similar to that of whites, whereas that of the Muslims is much higher. Sikh and Hindu crimes are much lower than the national average, whereas those of Muslims are also higher, much higher. But then there is a violent aspect of British society. The British are more prone to violence, especially British youth. And Muslims may be more susceptible to these influences, given their disadvantaged situation. Even though the disadvantage may be their own fault, it nevertheless exists. It is an objective fact, and this may compound the influence. So these were worth noticing. It was pointed out that in Brit-Am, nowhere else do so many young men desire to look brutish and act as if the slightest disagreement with them, the first thing denied them, the first word they seem offensive, will cause them to become violent. In no other country in the world are so many doormen and bouncers necessary to keep order in places of entertainment. In no other place in the world does collective enjoyment, football matches and so on, so quickly turn to fight and riot. Eye-to-eye contact is regarded as a challenge and can lead to an attack of murderous intensity, with sexual crudity and incontinence accompanied by furious jealousy, a common occasion of violence among young men. That is, these comments are applicable to the British young people in general. So they have a violent element amongst them. Apparently the Muslims are infected by this more than other groups. Israel has apparently an arsenal of nuclear weapons. The different news reports about it, officially Israel denies it, and America goes along with the denial of Israel possessing these weapons, but they do exist. This is a factor in Middle East politics, Middle East reality. The number of Israel's nuclear warheads is numbered at between 150 to 300. Arrangement of silence has been enforced, according to American Israeli historian Avner Cohen. He wrote that in a 1969 meeting between President Richard Nixon and Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir, which no transcript of this meeting has been made available. Apparently the two leaders, Golda Meir and President Richard Nixon, struck a deal. Israel would not test its nuclear weapons or announce they possessed them, while the United States wouldn't press Israel to give them up or to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And the USA to hold its annual inspections of Dimona, site of Israel's Negev Nuclear Research Center. Mordecai Vanunu, a left-wing technician at Dimona, he provided the first detailed public account of the program, Israel's nuclear program, in 1986. Subsequently, he was captured by Israeli intelligence officials. He was led to move from Britain to Italy. From Italy, he was sent by plane, by force to Israel, and there he was sentenced. He was sent to a long prison sentence. Since Israel does have nuclear weapons, and this is a factor, this is the truth, as far as we know, and it is actually an advantage in the existing situation. We also knew a news report tells us that in Sydney and in Brisbane, in Australia, and more than 900 police officials or police officers, underground policemen, 900 altogether, have roped in 15 suspects in a plot which was probably led by 22-year-old Amaj and Azari and other Muslims living in Australia. The ones mentioned come from Afghanistan, but the other ethnic groups may have been involved, and the plot was to grab a passerby in the street and to cut his head off and put upload a video of this to the YouTube. But they were caught, and the plot has been revealed. Scotland has voted to stay with Britain. There was a referendum, In Scotland this morning, according to the results that came out last night, Scotland is remaining part of the United Kingdom. The turnout was quite high for this referendum. 55% of the population of those voting at least said they wanted to stay with the UK. 45% said no. In most areas of Scotland, those who were against devolution, who were against separating from Britain, were the majority. In some areas they were not, including Glasgow. At all events, for the country on the whole was 55% for staying with Britain and 45% against. Martin Indyk, who incidentally is Jewish, but he has always been against the state of Israel continuing to control Israeli territory in Judah and Samaria, and he has always been pressuring Israel to make concessions. He's also served as the emissary of President Obama, pushing Israel, pressuring Israel to give in to the Palestinian side. So a recent report says that he received a check for $14.8 million from Qatar. Qatar is known as a supporter of Hamas, supporter of ISIS, and a supporter of all the terrorist organisations that want to destroy the state of Israel and work against the USA and work against the Western world. Martin Indyk received a check from these people for nearly $15 million. This check officially went to an organisation that he represents, the Brookings Institute. What exactly happened to the money is up to an independent examination. May the Lord God of Israel bless all of you. Thank you.